Hello, and welcome to today's webinar. I am Jamie Keene, Director of Global Events at Telium, and I'll be your moderator today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. This webinar will last approximately 30 minutes and will be recorded. The slides and recordings will be made available at the end of the session. We have some related resources available for you in the attachments and links section of the platform, so please feel free to engage with them at any point. If there's something that you find helpful or important during this webinar, we encourage you to share socially, and you can mention at Telium. We want to hear your questions, so please use the Q&A feature to submit your questions. And for any of those that we aren't able to answer live, we will follow up with you after. Just a quick note that this is part 1 of our CDP workshop. Part 2 of our CDP workshop will immediately follow this webinar and will be hosted by David Robb, founder of the CDP Institute. In part 2, David will build on the knowledge gained in this workshop, and we will share how to use the CDP to make the most of your customer data. So we encourage you to join, and have included a link to register in the attachments and links section. Now on to today's presenters. Meredith Albertson is Vice President of Marketing at Telium. She has more than 15 years of strategic marketing and partnerships experience, encompassing digital, product marketing, optimization, personalization, and special events. Matthew Berger is a content strategist and creator at Telium, with years of experience helping B2B and B2C customers and companies tell their brand's stories in every form. All right, so with that, let's get started. Matthew, over to you.
Thanks, Jamie. So just a little bit before we get started, talk about what we're going to cover. We're going to go over the state of the CDP industry, and a lot of that data comes from our State of the CDP report. We're going to go over some key data challenges facing companies. We're going to briefly go over some use cases and tips on how to buy a CDP. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about meeting data privacy regulation challenges. All right, so just a word on our CDP report. The report explores behaviors and attitudes of over 300 US decision makers in marketing, data, and analytics. And we surveyed people from retail and healthcare to finance and hospitality. So it's just a quick look at what's working for people and how they view the CDP technology going forward. So before we get to that data, let's take a quick look at what the CDP industry looks like today. And so, you know, if you followed the CDP marketplace at all, you've seen how huge the industry has grown in a really short amount of time. So in 2016, there were 23 vendors in the space, and we've already eclipsed 100 this year. And that's including all the consolidation that's happening with smaller CDP vendors. But the thing about it is that consolidation isn't equaling clarity in the marketplace. And that's part of the reason we wanted to share this workshop with you today, is to bring some clarity. So, you know, we have this confusing market, and CDPs, but CDPs still remain very necessary for many companies. So, Meredith, what kind of challenges are driving companies to look for a CDP?
Thanks, Matt, and hey, everyone. So I think that the first challenge we need to look at is really that, you know, many marketers are starting to feel that strain of the diminishing third-party cookie. Now, while we don't think third-party cookies are going to disappear entirely, it's, you know, those third-party cookies are what's being used to fuel a lot of targeted campaigns and inform SEO strategies. And that data is becoming more difficult, almost nearly impossible to get. And this, in turn, is really leading to what we're calling a first-party data approach. Now, just to level set with the audience, first-party data is that data that your company directly collects from consumers. So, and that's whether that data is online or that data is offline.
Yeah, so once companies have all this first-party data, they run into what's called the privacy paradox. So, on the one hand, you have to meet the demands of consumers who want more personalized experience, and that experience requires a lot of good data to pull off, right? But at the same time, you have to meet the demands of consumers who want companies to ensure their data privacy. And so, in the past, the more data you collected from more sources, you open yourself up to more risk of, damaging leaks or costly fines. But now, to stay competitive, companies have no choice but to do both.
The third challenge is really no matter however you look at it, companies have more customer data today than they actually know what to do with. According to research from Splunk, 55% of the data that the average enterprise company is collecting is in dark data. Now, dark data is the data that brands are collecting, but they actually really might not even know about it. At the same time, all that data requires people to watch over it, people to derive insights from it, and put it actually into action and make it useful. And frankly, companies today don't really have enough people to go chase down every single byte of data that they have coming in from every data source. So that is really one of the reasons that CDPs are becoming so crucial today.
And the cherry on top of all of these challenges is that the customer journey is moving to real time. According to the CMO Council, only 7% of marketers in 2018 felt they could effectively deliver real-time data-driven marketing engagements across all their touch points. And that's a really low number, obviously. But even for the companies who don't think they have real-time needs, the rate at which customers move from channel to channel is far faster than many organizations can currently act on their data. So we think it's far better to be ready in real time than left waiting for data to process while your customers are moving on without you. So, we've talked about why people need CDPs, but let's talk about what companies are using CDPs for.
Yeah, well, you're looking to maybe start investing in a CDP. It's probably, we thought it might be really helpful to take a moment and take a look at the actual use cases and what these are getting used for. So from a marketing and customer experience perspective, many brands are using a CDP to reduce wasted spend with media suppression, or develop a single customer view to really understand how a user is engaging and interacting with a brand. They're also using it for new customer acquisition and driving loyalty to retain those customers. So I thought it might be helpful today to spend a moment and actually share a few quick use cases. So as I mentioned, one of the most powerful ways that marketers are using a CDP is, again, customer acquisition. Specifically, looking to create audience segments and use customer data from a number of different channels to better target their prospects. So in this example, this is where a customer profile in the CDP, it has data, as you can see, from the website, from the mobile app, from in-store point-of-sale systems. This includes purchase history and insights into this customer's behavior, like what topics she may be interested in. These are what we would call attributes. Now, these attributes can be used to create segments like beginner interest or pro interest. Now, since a CDP integrates with your entire tech stack, you can then utilize these segments to actually deliver those real-time relevant experiences across different technologies. So the second sort of grouping we see brands using CDPs for is really marketing, data, and sales operations. Now, this is going to cover use cases and uses from automation to driving insights from that customer data more quickly and improving your data quality. So I'm sure all of you have heard of that term, single view the customer. And while that probably seems like a use case that's really valuable to marketing, It's actually hugely important for your entire organization, especially the data and analytics team, because they want to be able to drive those insights really quickly and make sure that the whole organization is taking action on them. In many companies, every individual customer experience channel. So again, let's go back to your website, your in-store experience, your mobile app. Often each one of these channels has a very unique and different view of a customer. Now, if this is the case, chances are you're delivering inconsistent customer experiences, which is what none of us want. So in this example, you can see that customer behavior from all these different engagement channels is actually being brought together in the CDP to form different groups of customers. So here you'll see we've got window shoppers and repeat purchasers. Now, the CDP is going to enable you to take action on these different groups of customers across those technologies like Facebook, Optimizely, and even Salesforce. Now, the third thing that brands are using CDPs for is the future. If you think about it, how you set up and treat your customer data today is going to impact your ability to deliver on tomorrow. Now, by tomorrow, I think that really falls into two big groups for me right now. One of those is changing data privacy legislation. So 2 years ago, we were preparing for GDPR. Today, we've got CCPA just on the horizon, and there's going to be more data legislation on its way. Brands are using CDPs to help enable their ability to comply with these ever-changing regulations. And the second thing is really big marketing and strategy initiatives that you have, like machine learning. Now, whether or not your brand is ready to tackle those big things today, you should be buying a CDP that's going to enable your ability to do it whenever you're ready. So in this use case, we're going to look a little bit at machine learning. So machine learning is one of those buzzwords right now. It's an emerging capability that actually is super powerful for finding insights into data. But to really harness it and to deliver ROI, there's often like data management and activation challenges that you're going to have to tackle. So here you'll see that machine learning is actually applied at the customer profile in CDP to generate insights. Now, this customer profile, again, it's pulling in all that customer data from the different channels, and it's making it the perfect place to really generate those machine learning insights. New audience segments are created. So here we're showing a likelihood to make a purchase. Now, using a CDP with machine learning capabilities, it's really going to enable you to create these very precise segments and generate revenue using those machine learning insights across your whole tech stack. So this means that even if some of those activation technologies that you're using don't have machine learning capabilities, because you've used it in the CDP, you're actually able to take advantage of that across your entire tech stack.
All right, so let's dig into some of the data that we found in our survey. And this first one's a little bit of a head scratcher. So we found that 85% of organizations with CDPs were satisfied with their current provider, but half still said they plan to switch their CDP within the next 12 months. So Meredith, why is good enough not good enough?
Yeah, so this data point was actually fascinating to me, and I'm really glad we dug into it a little bit deeper with our survey respondents. We found out there were actually three main areas that were indicated by the survey respondents, like as to why this was the situation. So number one was a lack of third-party integration. So the CDPs these individuals were using weren't offering powerful turnkey integrations. Number two, they cited poor customer experience in service and support, which was not really good to hear either. And the third is they were saying that their CDPs lacked the ability to help them be enabled to face all of these new data regulations. So as we were talking about, your CDP really should be enabling that compliance. So in order to help you avoid having to make this sort of rip and replace painful change, we think it's key that you ask the right questions when you're in the evaluation process.
Yeah, and those questions start really early on to avoid the need to replace. And a lot of them are internal, like what impact is the CDP going to have on your business goals? What are the current and future use cases that the CDP will be a part of? What other departments are going to need to be involved? How will it integrate with your broader tech stack? And then, you know, as you start to talk to the vendors, do they work with companies like you, or do they have global reach if you have a global company? So, you know, there's even more that you have to ask about when you talk to a vendor. So Meredith, you want to dive into some of those?
Yeah, I think in addition to asking these these internal questions, you've got to verify the capabilities with any CDP vendor that you're looking to partner with. So, you know, one, is it trusted and specializing in data quality and governance? Meaning, is this CDP solution going to help you establish a foundation that is going to set your brand up for success today and tomorrow? Is it helping you to solve those business challenges, like maybe marketing or personalization, that are super important to your business today? Does it ingest data from any data source that you're looking to? Like, if mobile is very key and core to your business initiative, you have to make sure that your CDP can ingest that data. Robust integrations, you know, going back to what we were just talking about, like, you have to make sure that the CDP is offering those really powerful turnkey integrations. And one key question here is to make sure that the integrations are both client side, and that's really on the tag management side of things, as well as server side, looking at the API side. You need both. You have to have that hybrid approach, you know, moving forward in today's business. And I think the last thing is this CDP really real time? A lot of vendors, you know, tend to make this claim, but their real time may be 15 minutes. And if that's not the real time experience that your customers are looking for, then that could be a red flag and something that you need to discuss further.
Yeah, so one of the things we mentioned briefly was just getting buy-in from other departments, and we found that this was a big hurdle for a lot of our respondents. 27% found this to be their biggest challenge. So Meredith, why is getting buy-in a challenge, and how would you recommend people go about doing so?
Yeah, I thought that this data point was super understandable. I think that the industry is unclear, and I think us vendors have actually had a lot to do with making it very murky and really a hard process for our buyers. So I think you've got a lot of different vendors with different capabilities, and they're kind of all putting on this CDP hat, and it's making the situation really sort of clunky. So I actually thought this was such a great question. I went and talked to our head of global customer success, Jim Hartley, and got some tips from him on how to get buy-in to a CDP within your organization, but also set yourself up for success. So his first suggestion was to assemble and align your key stakeholders. So this really means, one, getting executive alignment. You have to make sure that the key objectives and the business challenges that you're trying to solve for are not just aligned in your team, but also aligned all the way up the chain to your executive team. The second piece, make sure that you are establishing roles and responsibilities and ownership within the CDP. You know, what teams are going to be involved, who on those teams are going to have ownership responsibilities, and what exactly are the benefits that each one of these teams are going to get from the CDP. The second point is you want to go out and gather information. And by this, I mean you want to really codify the desired outcomes and the expectations. So you want to think through, like, do we want to just increase customer satisfaction? Do we want to grow our revenue? Do we want to cut operational expenses? It's really important that you go out and you interview and you talk to these key stakeholders, and you make sure that you're aligned and you're gathering that information so you know really what you're trying to accomplish here. The third point is you want to determine the segments and really identify your identity resolution strategy. So make sure that, you know, this may sound really simple, but define the personas that you want to segment. What is your targeting strategy? If you want to do identity resolution, there is a strategy there that you need to talk about with the different groups in your organization. What channels are you going to be collecting data from? What integrations are you going to use? Also, if you're going to be doing a lot of really new personalized experiences, this is going to take additional creative. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about. So think about the creative that you need and the resources and budgetary constraints that may come along with all this. Number 4 is define an action plan. Again, make sure you're setting up your expectations, you're prioritizing the areas that can deliver the most impactful outcomes, and then execute on that plan. And here, this is where you need to really measure the outcome and the value. If something is working, do more of it. If something is not working, take a step back and figure out how to optimize. Is there changes that we need to make? Is there a different strategy we need to put in place? Also think about how often are you measuring? Frequency is important, and you need to think about that at the very beginning of the relationship. And then also think about a qualitative assessment. Is your CDP helping to solve those operational problems, or is it just generating revenue and making money? You need to look at both sides of the fence there.
So one of the things we wanted to find out in this survey was, what are people doing with their CDP? And one of the things we found was that half of the respondents couldn't ingest data from any and every channel. And this is, a little strange to us because we really think of the CDP as, being the backbone of how you collect data and track the customer journey. So, CDPs are really important for creating that single view of the customer and creating a complete profile to help you understand what customers are experiencing with your brand. And sort of related, and these might be the same 50% of people, but we also found that they were unable to automatically stitch visitors. So Meredith, what is visitor stitching and why is that important?
Yeah, that's a great question. So visitor stitching is a form of identity resolution. It's the process of identifying a user across multiple engagement channels. So websites, apps, in-store, and other touch points, and then combining that data together to really form a complete profile of their activity. The challenge is that really, CDP vendors are doing it differently. So you need to make sure that you're understanding how the CDP you're evaluating approaches visitor stitching. Second is you really need to make sure that they can do it in real time. We've built a patented visitor stitching capability for our customers that actually proactively seeks out these matching identifiers across all the different touch points and combines them in real time. And that real time giving you as a brand the opportunity to really immediately act upon this data. It makes your personalization and your remarketing and your retargeting strategies even more powerful. And we've got a really good use case I wanted to share here. It's, to truly know your customer, it's key to bring all that data and their interactions and their user history together in one profile. But silos within our organization of this customer data can often create challenges. So I'm going to give you an example here that we can all relate to. Back pre-COVID, when we were all going to sporting events and concerts, if you've ever purchased tickets to one of these things, you have typically started off on a team's website or perhaps the arena website. Then once you find the game or the concert that you want to attend and you go through the process of looking to buy that ticket, you're most likely taken to a third-party website like Ticketmaster to then kind of make that purchase. Now, for a lot of entertainment companies and sports teams, once you actually make that transition in your customer journey to the third-party site, that sports team or that arena was actually losing your data. They had no way to tell like what game you were buying or what date of a concert, what things you liked and disliked. And that was putting them at a real sort of disadvantage as they weren't able to deliver an experience on that full picture of who you are as a user. So one of our customers, the Utah Jazz of the NBA, they had that similar problem. So they were actually able to use the Telian CDP to actually tie the Utah Jazz site together with the Ticketmaster domain and track the visitors and collect and correlate that data across both sites, and then stitch the user identities together. And this was able to really start to give them that full, complete picture of their users, and then resulted in some amazing personalization strategies for the team.
And of course, the other side of that personalization coin is governance and privacy, right? So we also asked about this, and two of the interesting things we found was how respondents view the CDP in relation to data governance. And the second most popular response for how people want to see their CDP improve was better data governance. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to CDPs as playing a role within their being able to comply with data regulations. So Meredith, why is this the case?
As I mentioned earlier, CCPA is not going to be the last sort of new legislation or regulation that brands are going to be faced with. Right now, there's actually a number of states that have their own legislation out there for consideration, along with many other countries. So it is key that your CDP is enabling your organization to stay compliant with all these different changes that are going to be, with CCPA happening over the next couple of months, but just preparing you for whatever the future can bring. And that is going to be through really supplying and providing your organization and your team those data governance tools that are going to help you really build this secure and governed data supply chain. Now, as a result of that, you're going to get not only this complete view of your customer, but you're going to be able to manage it and use it to enable your company to stay compliant.
So we're all going to have to wait to see what enforcement looks like for the CCPA, but you don't have to wait for the state of the CDP report. You can find it in the attachments and the links section, or you can find it on our website. And then Meredith, you want to tell us about what's coming up next?
Yes, so if you haven't already signed up, we would absolutely love to invite you to the second part of our CDP workshop today. So David Robb, who is the founder of the CDP Institute, is going to be presenting a webinar on how to use a CDP to actually make the most of your customer data. And we also, before we finish up today, we did want to talk to you a little bit about our annual event, Digital Virtuosity. So this is Telian's annual event for the datalutionaries out there that want to deliver better customer experiences. They want to drive growth, and they really want to lead that digital transformation in their organization through customer data. So you're going to hear from a lot of our customers, a lot of our global brands like ASICS, Star Tribune, NIB out of Australia, Monash University, Barcelo Hotel Group out of Spain, and many more. So we're really, really excited about this event. Our North America event is actually going to be held on Tuesday, May 12th. It is free to attend. So the URL address is up on the screen, but if you want to learn more or actually go ahead and register, you can go to telium.com/DVNA2020 and go ahead and get signed up. Again, it's going to be a great event, and we certainly hope to see you there. Let's see. All right. I think I will call back to our moderator. I think we might be out of time for today, but I didn't want to sign off before we made that call.
Yeah, it looks like we may be out of time for today, but for any questions that we weren't able to answer live today, we will be sure to follow up with you after. We got a lot of great questions in here, so really appreciate you being involved and interacting today. A lot of great content, so thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to check out the related resources in the attachments and links section. And thank you, Meredith and Matthew.